You're watching the YouTube version of the We Are Innovation podcast. Join us as we explore how innovation, new technologies, and human creativity improve our lives. The future is calling.
Hello, this is Tania Rak, and this is the new episode of We Are Innovation podcast that I'm taking over. And for the first episode that I'm hosting, I have my lovely guest today, who is Eugenia Kenny, the Senior Associate at Bitcoin Policy Institute, speaking from DC today. So, Eugenia, would you like to introduce yourself? We met with you around a year ago in DC when I was having a visit, and we had a great conversation about Bitcoin, about human rights. We also talked lots of miscellaneous about overlapping interests. But if you could tell our guests more about your professional path, how you got into the industry, and also for our guest, Eugenia is originally from Argentina, and she relatively recently moved to the US. So how all that happened, I think that today it would be an amazing, interesting conversation.
Thank you so much, Tania, for having me here. It's a long time overdue. We spoke about it a year ago when we met, over a year ago when we met, and I've been looking forward to recording this. So I'm Eugenia Kenny. I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I moved to the US over 5 years ago today, so it's been a while. And at that time, I was in college and playing field hockey very passionately, and decided it was a great idea to move here and play for a school. And so I pursued that dream and got a full ride to play D1 field hockey here and studied politics and international studies and had a blast. I mean, it was an amazing experience. Um, and after that, I graduated. I got a master's degree because, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Things were just not very clear for me, and I still had some eligibility years and decided to, get a master's degree. And I did that. And once I graduated, I knew I either wanted to work in politics or in Bitcoin. I can dive deeper into how I ended up being a Bitcoiner, but I was already one and wanted to, believed in the mission, so wanted to work in Bitcoin or in politics. Little did I know there was an institute that perfectly intersect Bitcoin and politics, the Bitcoin Policy Institute, where I work now. And so actually a friend of us who actually introduced you and me as well mentioned BPI. And yeah, I checked the website, I read a bit about it, and I was like, wow, this is perfect. I want to work in politics or in Bitcoin, but this is Bitcoin politics, basically. So I was very thrilled, sent out a very well thought email, and yeah, they decided to hire me. So here I am, and yeah, it's been a fun ride.
100%. Yeah, I remember when we met, you were just starting at Bitcoin Policy Institute, very fresh to move into DC. And
Yeah.
I love how things are going and that you are growing. For our guests, before we started recording, Eugenia just recently participated in one of the panels at the conference at Las Vegas Bitcoin conference. I'm not sure whether the name is pronounced correctly, but hey, here we are. I also know that you have a very interesting path of getting into the Bitcoin community and starting the activism because once we met, you mentioned that you actually were introduced by your mother. So how did it all happen and how did you get involved? How did you stay? And also, since you are coming from Argentina, I think that coming from another country also makes an impact because you have the domestic context. And I wonder how that impacts your perception of Bitcoin as a tool, whether you are applying the understanding of that domestic context to the US context and how it all overlaps together.
Yeah, the way in which I got introduced to Bitcoin is, like you said, through my mother. Funny enough, while we were in Vegas recently, somebody was telling me about their kids and how much he thought, wow, they're going to be the first generation of kids whose parents introduced them to Bitcoin. I'm like, wait a minute. I actually got introduced to Bitcoin by my lovely mother. And it was a blast. I was like, yeah, wow, that's crazy actually to think I'm sort of the first class of, kids whose parents introduced them to Bitcoin. Hopefully, there's many more to come. But yeah, sh- you know, being born in Argentina makes you a bit more prone to understanding Bitcoin and why it matters. I know, having constant debasement, I think we've had over, yeah, 20 periods of like hyperinflation and some crazy amount of numbers that in which Argentines have sort of lost all their savings because of, government malpractice and, the infinite money printer. And so in that context, a while ago, my mom, she's always been ahead of the curve. She found out about Bitcoin. She read the white paper because my older brother, he was a gamer and came across Bitcoin and showed it to my mom, and she immediately understood it. And so I grew up thinking everybody's parents knew Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was this normal thing. Little did I know, oh wait, actually nobody knows what Bitcoin is basically. It's still pretty niche, and it's been over, I don't know, 10 years at this point. Um, so that's how I got into Bitcoin. And so when I moved to the US, that's how she would send me money through Bitcoin. And so yeah, it's been very insightful to have a unique perspective. Definitely, I'm the only Argentine in our team, so I'm always, every time we take meetings on the Hill and we're talking to staffers, I'm like, well, actually, of course, depends who I'm talking to, but yeah, I often bring up, well, Bitcoin, in the US, it's like a portfolio diversifier. Everywhere, like in a lot of other places in the world, it's actually a hedge against inflation, a tool against repression, against authoritarian governments. And yeah, in the case of Argentina, it's just like a safe haven, right? Like, yeah, it's volatile and, you have over 50% sometimes, fluctuation in price, and you gotta, understand that that's what you're getting into. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, 2001, people were denied access to their money. They lost all their money. If you had your money in the bank in Argentina, you lost it all, right? Right? So when you're raised in that environment, it definitely gives you a fresh set of eyes to, seeing the financial system and seeing the way governments work and how the money printer works. And, it's fun. It's fun to always have that, different perspective to bring with in meetings or like just generally meeting people. So it's very fulfilling to spread that, okay, yeah, there's more about this technology than what comes across your eye the first time you see it.
I mean, rates in America and Argentina, of course, in particular, already has a very big growth when it comes to crypto adoption. But
Yes.
you are rightfully saying, because meeting people from right in America and from the US, I usually have a very different experience in conversations on that subject. So, from your perspective, especially given that right now you are working on that professionally on the daily basis, what do you think the policymakers in the US, and also I think that we might have some listeners in Europe as well who are interested in the subject, or so we might have regulators listening to us as well. So what do you think they can learn from Latin American experience?
um yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, I think, is, and this is something we talk at BPI. We've had some research papers discussing this in other parts of the world, like in Asia. Um, this is a technology that is here to stay. Of course, some countries or some regions like Latin America have like 3 times rate of adoption than in the US. And that's explained by all the context I was just talking about. But nonetheless, this technology is here to stay, right? And that's a fact. And it's also, I would claim, it's also a geopolitical asset at this point. And that's also not up for discussion. And although I'm willing to, go debate somebody on that, but I think there's very strong arguments as to why it's a technology that's here to stay and it's a geopolitical asset at this point. So it's not about which countries, what you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. It's about who's going to get there first. And there's going to be significant advantages to those countries who embrace Bitcoin, right? With regards to those who don't. And so I think that's something that must be kept in mind constantly. And it's an open source technology. People can access it. It's not that you can just, freeze your bank accounts. So yeah, it's unlike any other sort of tool we've had before. It's so innovative that you got to look at it with a different perspective.
What are the perspectives that you are covering the most these days? I mean, you are talking to policymakers. How do you help them? How do you, as Bitcoin Policy Institute, help them to understand the Bitcoin? Like, what's the mission behind that? Also, I wonder what are the main challenges in your work, how different they are from Latin American ones, how different they are from European ones. And also, while I agree that Bitcoin has a big potential when it comes to innovation, and it touches base on such topics as financial inclusion. Sometimes it also has to do things with national security and other stuff. But what would you identify as the biggest prospects when it comes to innovative aspect of that?
Yeah, it's kind of a slow progress and a bit of an uphill battle to talk to policymakers about Bitcoin and sort of have them really understand and grasp the technology. But yeah, I think the more you incentivize people to, for instance, small business owners. Right now, one of our big priorities, or among others, is the de minimis tax treatment for Bitcoin transactions, for everyday Bitcoin transactions. Block just the Block owns the Square terminals, which are broadly used in the US. And for every transaction, every transaction you do on Bitcoin, there's this form you're supposed to submit to the IRS, right? And so there's a huge bureaucratic burden that comes from using Bitcoin as everyday payments. Sorry, forgot to say, Block is allowing Bitcoin to receive Bitcoin payments, right? So that's the important premise of what I'm saying. But so there's this bureaucratic burden that comes from using Bitcoin as everyday money. On the other side, if you think about it, there's, I think, 2 or 3% transaction fees that are currently in place with, your main payment infrastructure. And that's that's cutting revenue from small business owners and medium business owners and just people in general, right? So if there's a more efficient way we can transact and we can, exchange value among society, like I think that's a no-brainer for me. It's just like a step forward to, being a more free society and having more control over how we operate in the real world. Um, yeah, and you also asked about our efforts and how we communicate, right? So another thing we do, and like I said, it's kind of an uphill battle, or sometimes, it becomes challenging because, you're talking to people who are extremely busy and manage a wide variety of portfolios. Crypto is just one of them. So we're putting some programs in place to, sort of help members and staffers understand the technology. One of which is we have two main programs that yeah, I think they're amazing programs. One's the Congressional Fellows Program, which we started earlier this year. We placed four subject matter experts, both in the House and the Senate, both in Republican and Democratic offices. And so they're like being fellows in their offices and advising their members on Bitcoin issues. And they're also um, emerging technologies. So they're also doing like stable coins and AI and other stuff, but Bitcoin mainly. And the second program, which we're starting this summer, and I'm very excited, is the Satoshi Scholars Program. We are inviting around 12 staffers, senior congressional staff, that they're already working on the Hill. And mind you, these are the people who are doing the legwork every day, These are the people who are actually running the Hill, I think. And so we're inviting 12 congressional staffers to 5 dinners. So we'll host 5 dinners and we'll tackle 5 different areas of Bitcoin. And so we're going to do lectures and discussions and Q&As. And they're going to be thinking about, okay, for my member, what could be a good policy he could put in place, and that aligns with his ethos, right? So each person's going to do something that is shaped for their member and their priorities, and they're going to be working on that. And by the end of those 5 dinners, we're going to do a 2-night capstone retreat where we get together final weekend, and it'll be a hackathon style. We're going to do war games, or we're going to do activities and more lectures. So this is just one of the efforts we're doing. And if you do this every year or with certain cadence, these efforts compound, and these are the people who will probably end up staying on the Hill, and they're going to continue to work on the Hill, and they're going to carry all this knowledge throughout their careers. So yeah, it's a bit of an uphill battle, but there's certainly a lot of interest from lots of different stakeholders to do more education efforts. And, that's what we're here for and part of our mission. And yeah, we enjoy it. So very excited to keep on doing those things.
That's amazing. I wish you very good luck with that. And are you planning to do that on the rolling basis, or as for now, this is the experimental type of thing? How do you see the future of that?
Yeah, so this is the inaugural cohort. I mean, we've never done this before. We're still, we're a 5-year-old organization, so we're relatively young, and we're relatively small for DC sizes. So, we're putting together this inaugural cohort now. We're hoping to do a second one some point this year, but it's midterm year, so I don't know how that's gonna end up, like how that's gonna actually happen. But we're for sure planning to continue doing this in the future. And yeah, I think it's word of mouth, and it's going to expand, and it's probably going to get a lot of interest. I mean, these are very important topics. Being discussed weekly, I'd say, and people are interested. It's the future. So uh, the staffers know it. I mean, they're all like 22 to maybe early 30s. So, they're young people. They're more prone to understanding the technology and understanding the importance of it. So,
Great. But you're also working a lot with people who are in charge and people who are not always in favor of the development and acceleration of adoption of Bitcoin. And again, I bet that the American context is very different from Latin American context. So, given that you are also meeting regulators a lot through your work, how do you see what kind of policy changes most accelerate the responsible Bitcoin innovation, whether in the US or maybe globally? And what are the most common challenges that you could identify right now?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is tax treatment. You can very easily know what the priorities are for any given government if you see their tax treatment on stuff. That's how you incentivize, like everything's just the economy basically. So, yeah, I think it would be a huge win for any country who um, gives advantageous tax treatments to Bitcoin and incentivizes investment and brings in good environments for Bitcoin companies to move there. I mean, we've seen that with, I don't know, countries, and um, there's examples of that when you give favorable tax treatments, then people move to your jurisdiction, right? I mean, that's the case in Dubai, for instance. So I think that's the biggest thing that a country can do to incentivize. I mean that at the institutional level, right? Like at the high level. But um, yeah, I don't know about how you incentivize adoption or make it more favorable for like for in other terms for younger people or people who are using this.
I see. I was reading a few of your statements on social media, and also we had previous conversations in person. So, and of course, among others, there were topics like immigration and also the development of the AI and overall the future of technology. And of course, We Are Innovation is pretty much in favor of the technological developments. So, how do you see Bitcoin and decentralized technologies intersecting with all of these forces in the coming years? Let's not put it way too far, but maybe let's say 3, 5 years.
Yeah, we've actually done a great study. You can check it out at moneyforai.org. Um, we basically asked 29 frontier models or a bunch of frontier models which money they would choose to transact. And they chose Bitcoin, stable coins, and a huge gap between, like, behind, they chose other stuff. And so that tells you that the future, and this is very hot topic as well. It's everybody's talking about AI. Okay, there's this aspect about AI, right? What are they going to use to transact? And if you don't like, okay, you can think about what are like people are gonna tell their AIs, go get me my groceries and here pay for them. So, there's that level. And then there's the level in which I'm sure AIs are gonna transact with each other for computational power, right? So there's going to be thousands of transactions that they're going to need to do, and they're already choosing Bitcoin and stable coins. And it makes sense. They're choosing um, digital native money. They're choosing Bitcoin and they're choosing a decentralized money. So it's very interesting. I'm very curious to see what happens in the next few years, but yeah, I think AI will use Bitcoin to transact, and that's going to open, a Pandora box of, what are we going to do next? But yeah, it's definitely everything's going to sort of converge into these technologies.
Any more coming projects from Bitcoin Policy Institute, or maybe some collaborations that you're excited about other than the fellowships that you mentioned?
Uh, Well, we're going to be at the Oslo Freedom Forum. We're sponsoring that event. So I'm excited to, speak to human rights activists and people who have used Bitcoin to, like I said, flee authoritarian regimes or, make their voices be heard and not be repressed or a hedge against inflation, you name it. So that's coming up at the end of this month. And then Satoshi Scholars Program. Oh, and we're having our flagship summit at the end of September. So yeah, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be our fourth annual summit, and I don't know, we've great things have come from our summits. So I'm excited to see what happens this year. But yeah, there's constantly things coming up. We're constantly putting out research and you know, trying to set the narrative and, think broadly and deeply about Bitcoin and how it affects society and Bitcoin and emerging technologies. We sometimes talk about AI, like I mentioned, this study or stable coins, because, they're also technologies that we can't ignore. So very exciting things and lots to come.
I wish you very good luck with that and hope that I will be able to attend some of them.
Yes.
For some professionals that are interested in the intersection of policy, and you're also working with international affairs and, of course, the Bitcoin, what advice would you give based on your own experience? What should they start from?
Where should they start? Visiting our website, there's a bunch of resources there. No, there's a few good books to read. Um, yeah, the Genesis book is really good. It's doesn't talk about Bitcoin, but kind of talks about Bitcoin, but all the technologies leading up to Bitcoin and the ideas. Um, and then reaching out to people too. There's a huge Bitcoin community. Bitcoiners are always super welcoming. I found uh, some of the best people I've met through Bitcoin. So I think the best you can do is just get out there and start asking questions and getting involved, and you're going to be surprised. People are very welcoming, and it's a growing community, and it's a lot of us now, but yeah, people are always welcome. And Pizza Day is coming up. I don't know when this episode will come up, but May 22nd, Pizza Day. I'm sure your local Bitcoiner community is hosting a Pizza Day event. So for those who don't know, in May 22nd of 2010, somebody bought two pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, something like that. And so it was the first real world Bitcoin transaction. And I mean, it's yeah, 10,000, the most expensive pizza. So yeah, we always throw parties for it. So yeah, get out there and reach out to your community and get involved.
Yeah, by that time, I most evidently will be in Berlin, but actually, a few friends reached me out and just asked whether I would like to join. So it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Yes. And you should be there.
Yeah. Eugenia, so we are running out of time, but thank you so much for the conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you. Uh, I will keep you posted about when the episode will come. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. It was Eugenia Kenny, the Senior Associate from Bitcoin Policy Institute in DC. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this episode of the We Are Innovation podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. To know more about We Are Innovation, visit weareinnovation.global.